Welcome to Workforce Central, the official podcast of the National Association of Workforce Boards. Stay tuned as we explore the latest resources, thoughts, and trends in workforce development. And now, here's your host, Ron Painter.
Welcome to another edition of Workforce Central. I'm your host, Ron Painter, from the National Association of Workforce Boards offices in Washington, D.C. And today I am joined by Angela Pate and Jamie Grooms, and we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship, and we're going to be talking about it from the lens of a particular program that's operated down in Florida. So Angela and Jamie, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And let me add a little background. Angela is the president and CEO of the Focused Management Solutions, which is the contracted administrative entity of CareerSource North Central Florida. FMS focuses on bringing private enterprise efficiency to complex government processes such as workforce development, board management, private-public partnerships. Angela's efforts have brought more than $34 million of training and supplemental salaries for workforce experience and paid internships to her community. Prior to beginning work with FMS and acquiring the company in 2011, Angela founded a technology service company called Microgreen Incorporated. It specialized in 3D structural analysis. Angela, that's pretty cool. We're going to maybe talk a little bit more about that. Among her degrees, Angela has a master's degree in entrepreneurship from the University of Florida. Jamie Grooms is the chairman of AxoGen Incorporated Board of Directors since 2011 and as chairman of the board since 2002. Jamie is the co-founder of AxoGen Corporation and has served as its CEO. Jamie has provided the board of directors of several companies. He has been involved in a number of startups, got his experience back in the day with Virginia Tissue Bank, Jamie, now called LifeNet Health.
Yeah.
And has been on the board of directors of the University of Florida Tissue Bank. He holds a bachelor's degree in biology from Old Dominion, and he has serves on a number of board of directors. So Jamie, welcome. Angela, again, welcome.
Thank you.
I want to ask you both, tell the listeners a little bit about the story of Startup Quest. And I have to say, having been down in Gainesville and hanging out with you guys at the University of Florida's Innovation Center, really pretty cool, not only training, but really pretty cool results out of this. So tell us a little bit about Startup Quest.
Startup Quest was a program that was born out of the recession when we ran our first pilot project in 2011. This was a time when a lot of people were out of work that had high educations and had long and distinguished careers. And the University of Florida and our community was interested in helping to support them and leverage them to help commercialize technologies being created out of the University of Florida. Jane Muir, the assistant director of the Office of Technology Licensing, came up with the idea. She texted me at 3 o'clock in the morning with it. We tell this story all the time. I came up with some funding to run the pilot project with, and Jamie Grooms was one of our first mentors in that pilot project and watched it develop and helped us to all realize the value of what we had created. That program is founded on the basis of a mentor, which is someone who is already experienced and successful at commercializing technologies out of public laboratories. We then, as the workforce system, provide that experienced, successful entrepreneur, often had already made millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, clearly didn't need to work, but is coming to do this as part of a community effort and pursue their possible next venture. So we in the workforce system provide that mentor a team of unemployed or underemployed talented people who need career development now, for whatever reason. they may be a finance person, a marketing person, an engineer. We try to form up teams that create the core of a simulated startup company and hand them to the mentor and say, here you go. Here's a team. You've chosen a technology out of the catalog. You lead this team to create a startup company and teach them how to do a market analysis and a business plan. And at the end of 10 weeks, they present to a panel of investor judges. And it's a very robust, very stressful, rigorous, complicated program, just like a startup really is.
I was going to say, Angela, when I was down there and talking to some of the folks who had participated, this is pretty intense.
It's very intense. It's very intense in terms of the curriculum and the production, and also what the mentors are expecting from these people. And it's turned out to be very successful. We were successful in winning a grant from the Department of Labor to replicate it across Florida, which we did in Jacksonville and Daytona and down by the Space Coast, Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, St. Pete, Tallahassee, all over Florida. And we've had 1,800 people go through the 10-week program, 1 day a week in the afternoon. And we're getting some pretty outrageous results from it.
Angela, let me ask you a follow-up question. Then I want to have a question for Jamie. What are some of the elements that you think made Startup Quest effective?
Well, I would say the most important aspect of it is the mentor and the team-based collaboration in the model of how the program works, which is completely necessary in a company. And we all in the workforce system have heard for years that soft skills are the important thing that we need our workers to have. So the ability to communicate, the ability to work in a team, the ability to function under stress, those turned out to be some of the elements that really benefited the workers the most as they went through it. The other things are engaging the business community into the workforce system. Some of these brilliant mentors have continued to work with the workforce systems in all of these areas across Florida. Some of them sit on their boards now. They're bringing a level of strategy and smarts to the workforce boards that are beneficial and maybe haven't been there before in all cases. And the most exciting thing, I think, has been the life-changing mindset shift that happens among the participants, where they really become empowered. I'm going to let Jamie speak to that because he was a mentor.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask him something. One other element, Angela, I wanted to ask you about. You've had a lot of collaboration between your work and the universities.
Yeah, the program is designed specifically around these technologies. So we have the University of Florida, University of South Florida, University of Central Florida, Florida State, FIU, all the universities across the entire state of Florida, all of them that do research have their technologies made available to us, as well as all of the NASA labs nationally across the whole country make all their technologies available to this program. We also have the Department of Energy. So publicly funded research is what we're putting in the hands of the workforce to commercialize. So absolutely the integration with the education system is also a phenomenal benefit to the boards.
Jamie, in looking at your bio, you are a busy guy. Why mentor? What is it you see? What is it you get out of this experience?
It's at some point in life it becomes personal, and for me, the transition from a purely technical person with only a BS in biology to business was one of the hardest things I did in my life, and it hurt me. And it didn't need to be so hard. If I had a mentor, my life would have been better. I would have done a better job. It wouldn't hurt so much. And that scar lives with me every day. And so when this opportunity presented, it fit something I'd like to give back and help other people make this transition and make this personal decision. Part of Startup Quest is deeply personal. Can you be a leader? So one of the tactics I used in this program was I let everyone lead every week. It was a different leader. And some of the people failed, some of the people succeeded, but it actually affected them in a safe environment the way it was affecting me in real life, then you'd rather do this in a safe environment than real life, because people were breaking down and crying and they were fighting and the whole turmoil was created, but it was safe. They could experiment with themselves. And I would have loved to have that opportunity. My first company would have done better than it did, and I would have been a better leader faster if I had a mentor.
Jamie, one of the things that I always felt, I had the pleasure of being adjunct faculty. I felt that it made my day job, made me more effective in my day job. I put a lot more thought into what I was doing. Do you find that as a business volunteer with this effort that it helps you in what you do elsewhere?
Sure. For me also, life is a classroom, and if you're always learning, you can take those skills and advance yourself personally. So I've watched hundreds of companies in the startup world, and the lessons I've learned have been incredible, and I apply them, and I actually share them with the companies that I'm sitting on boards. Even though these little events are happening in the small startup world, they apply in the real world in major corporations.
Jamie, what's been the most surprising, feedback for you, or the most surprising part of what you've learned, or what reinforced what you thought you already knew?
I think the biggest lesson and reinforcing time and time again working with Startup Quest and startup companies is governance. You can have an experienced entrepreneur. Take myself. I've done 2 startups from concept to public offering, and without governance, I won't make the right decisions all the time. The daily pressures of running a company on your own with all the things on your head, one person cannot handle. And if they do handle them, many, many mistakes are going to be made. So if you have a good governance board, and the CEO has to, understand that's the role, and their role is there to serve at the leisure of that board, everybody behaves a little differently, and the conversation is more towards the company, and it's less personal, and the decision making and the outcomes for those decisions are much better. And I was seeing great. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. I was just going to say. I mean, we have there are like 500 plus workforce boards across the U.S., all business led. If you could think about a couple of questions, or these governance questions, are there core questions that you think are the essence of governing questions?
If you're looking at a company that's coming up, there's a few basics that you always have to assess. Is your leadership doing the job you want them to do? Is the company financed so the leader can execute the plan that's put forth? So those are the foundations of the board's decision making, in my opinion. And then, then it goes into strategy. If you have those 2 things secure, the next most critical thing is this company deploying the appropriate strategy to be successful? And success is defined, what goals do you have? And if that's all mapped out, those 3 elements can create, a wonderful success story for many, many people.
I've heard people, and maybe, is it correct? I've heard people say it's the questions about, are we doing the right work the right way?
Yeah. Can I pick up on that one comment?
Yeah.
Not only does execution part of the measurement, but how is part of the measurement too. And how is something I think we've lost quite a bit in America and business culture. Businesses are not evil. Businesses is a framework of people. But if you hire and you have a governing body that how is part of the equation, you will hire more ethical people, more fair people, and business becomes a positive tool more consistently than we see today.
So one of those governance questions are the values. How do we want to execute? Yes. Cool. I guess, Angela, what are some of the economic impacts that you all have been recognizing as a result of the program?
Well, Ron, I'm so glad you asked me that question.
Amazing how that just popped up, right?
So we were awarded a $12 million grant to replicate Startup Quest across the state of Florida. We've recently had an economic impact report done by a very credible economist that worked with the Department of Commerce originally under the Bush administration. We're now seeing an $85 million annual recurring economic impact to the state of Florida from all of the companies and jobs and income created from this program. State taxes, $4.6 million. Federal taxes, $7 million. From a $12 million grant over 5 years, we're getting $11.6 million in taxes paid annually.
Yeah,
so when you
basically
talk about an ROI.
Yeah, your ROI is, your investment is realized in a year.
Exactly. We basically, what they've calculated is a 14-to-1 ROI is what we're getting on the program over a 20-year period from the $12 million that we got originally from the Department of Labor. If you don't include any kind of, let me start again. If you don't include any increase in the annual salaries of the people that are participating, they have over 20 years, $115,000 of additional personal income to just that one person for a program that costs $2,500 for that one person. That's a heck of an ROI.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Jamie, from the standpoint of an entrepreneur, an investor, a business person, those are pretty good returns.
Any investor would love that. I brag about the first investment returned 15-to-1 for a for-profit venture here. So you're at venture capitalist returns here with this program.
That is awesome. Angela, as you have replicated this in Florida, what's some of the takeaways that you would suggest to boards across the country? And Jamie, I'm going to come back to that governance question, but Angela, what would you suggest to other boards?
So there's some really key points for boards to think about. This particular study is an evaluation study with a random control trial, meaning there's a treatment group and a control group. This is a research program funded by the Department of Labor for the workforce system. It's the largest entrepreneurship training study in the history of the world of this size, according to the World Bank. So we'll be publishing results in 2017. First thing, watch for the reports that come out from this program in April of 2017. Second thing, think about the concept of self-employment and job creation as a positive outcome in the workforce system. The first thing any workforce board says to me when I talk about this is, that's not our job to create jobs, and this will kill our performance in terms of placements because we can't track it. And I will always reply with, we can track it in ways that are compliant under WIOA, and we have a white paper discussing exactly how that I'd be happy to share with any workforce board interested to get their feedback and input on it. We can not only meet the common measures, but help exceed our current performance because we can track self-employed people as positive placements, and we can track them as retentions through supplemental data. The good news is wage rates are a buy because if you're reporting through supplemental data, it's removed from both the numerator and the denominator. So a workforce board can increase their potential for positive outcomes and performance by adding self-employment with employment and not suffer from any issues around wage rates, which are difficult, if not impossible, to measure for self-employed people.
So, Angela, since Workforce Central, it has its own app, both for iPhone and for Android, we'd be happy to put that white paper up so people who are listening to the podcast can go out to the app and grab that paper. Happy to do that. I think it would really be important for people to look at. I guess, Jamie, kind of a last question and your opportunity for last thoughts. I mean, how important in your mind, you've had a lifelong now affiliation with startups, with young companies. How critical is this spirit of entrepreneurship for the U.S. as we look ahead to whatever economy might be coming our way?
I would say one of the biggest things I saw working with this a few times actually is that the people that are involved, the mystery of business goes away. Their confidence in working with people is improved. They are a better employee, or they will know if they're going to be a entrepreneur or not in that moment, and they'll help guide their decision making to make a better career choice. That's what I saw. So I think duplicating this around the country is a very good idea. I would ask the workforce boards to add a little creativity to their thought process and strategies. This education component is very important in the basics to get people started. I'd ask them to consider, how do you get these things funded as part of their next quest?
Awesome. Angela, closing thoughts?
I would echo what Jamie just said about the fact that this is extremely valuable for employees as well as those that become self-employed. And often when they go through a program like this and decide they don't want to be self-employed, that is an extremely valuable lesson. It will save them years and millions of money and problems in their life and their family. Let them learn it in a program like this. Let them learn also what the employer needs, because when they leave this program, we are finding people getting employed faster at higher salaries. And they understand why the employer is asking of them what they're asking. That's the most valuable training I think that a workforce board can provide a worker. You can get occupational training in whatever field you want, anytime, any day. We're very good at that. This is something that we need support, or I won't say support, we need some additional solutions for providing great soft skills training. We have found nothing better as soft skills training than entrepreneurship training. And this goes even for some of the experiments we're doing with our high-risk youth and our welfare transition participants. We have a program that we piloted with our welfare population that we had 72% going through the program get jobs versus 29% who didn't go through the program. So this is serious soft skills training. We're not talking about everyone becoming a business owner. We're talking about them learning how business works so they can become a better worker or business owner. And that's my biggest, final comment, is that this isn't just for teaching people how to start companies. It's for improving their ability to understand what a business needs.
Angela Pate from Focused Management Solutions and Jamie Grooms from AxoGen Corporation. Thank you both for joining me. I really appreciate the opportunity to sit down and chat with you. Just a reminder, you've been listening to Workforce Central, the official podcast of the National Association of Workforce Boards from Washington, D.C. It's been my pleasure to be your host. I'm Ron Painter, and hopefully we will join you soon again. Thank you.